That's loud. I'd like to call the common council meeting for Oconomowoc to order for March 17th. Has it been appropriately noticed?
Yes, Your Honor, it has.
Everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Alderman Ellis.
Here.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Here.
Alderman Zwart. Alderman Stray.
Here.
Alderman Kavieski.
Here.
Alderman Rogers.
Here.
Alderman Rozak.
Here.
Alderman Shaw.
Here.
Okay, we need a motion to approve the minutes from the February 18th, 2020 meeting. May I
So
have a
moved.
motion?
Second.
Second, any questions, comments? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes passed. Moving on to comments and suggestions from citizens. If anybody has anything they'd like to say, please fill out one of the blue cards. I have two here, and I will call them up. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Sarah Poneth.
Evening.
Good evening.
I live in Menominee Falls. My address is N51W14441 Jacqueline Court. And I'm here because I am a candidate for judge for Waukesha County Circuit Court. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to be here tonight to introduce myself and to give you a little bit of information about my abilities and qualifications to be the next judge. Judge Lee Dreyfus is retiring after 30 years of service. His legacy of service will need to be filled by a qualified attorney to take his place on the bench. And I believe that I do have that experience and ability to hit the ground running if I am elected on April 7th. My legal experience follows a 20-year career in business. As a general practice attorney, I've handled over 1,500 cases in Waukesha County alone. I have a very diverse practice as a general practice attorney. So those 1,500 cases have been involved in the juvenile court, the criminal court, civil, family, probate. I wear multiple hats. I'm also a small business owner because I have a general practice in the village of Butler and I am the only attorney there. So I also handle transactional matters as well. So I have experience in real estate, estate planning, and small business matters. I'm driven to run for judge because my commitment to the people in the community of Waukesha County. My values are based on the things that I was raised on, working hard, earning the respect of others, being committed to the community, being of service to the community, and that call of service is what's leading me down this path. So I appreciate your time. I thank you very much for your attention. Sarah Ponath, I'll be on the ballot April 7th. Thank you.
Thank you. Jack Melvin.
Jack Melvin, I'm also running for judge here in Waukesha County. As mentioned already, Judge Dreyfus is retiring. I'm looking to succeed him. I live here in Oconomowoc, 1738 River Lakes Road North. And I live here, as mentioned, with my wife, 2 kids, very active in the community. I think a lot of people here know that. Member of the VFW, member of the Legion, was very involved with moving the Veterans Park. Very involved with the different Veterans Day activities, including being Grand Marshal, I think, twice. One right before the day after the Memorial Day Parade. I actually got on a plane and went to Iraq. Been deployed 3 times as a JAG, which means I'm a lawyer in the Army. And in that role, I have prosecuted quite a few sex assaults, unfortunately, but I've also advised soldiers on a wide variety of issues from divorce to wills. In fact, I've probably done over 1,000 wills, and unfortunately, one of those wills did get used as one of the soldiers I helped to die overseas. I'm also an attorney in private practice. I started off at a small firm in Milwaukee where I did civil litigation, mainly insurance work. Then I went in-house at General Casualty where I defended small businesses throughout the country. Initially, I was focused in Wisconsin, but it grew that I actually appeared in courts from Washington State to Florida and Rhode Island to California and lots of places in between. I currently work for the state. I work for Labor and Industry Review Commission where I deal with work comp appeals. I get both sides of a case. I make recommendations to commissioners upon their decision. I write up orders, a quasi-judicial role. I think that really highlights it. Obviously, I've been honored to work for the city. I'm on the assessment board, the review commission, so I deal with the tax assessments here in the city. It's been my honor to do that here for last year, and I appreciate the mayor giving me the opportunity to do that. Thankfully, if I do get elected, I'll be able to serve out the rest of this year since all our meetings are scheduled before August 1st. So once again, thanks, Mayor. Thank you. City Council, I appreciate your time to talk to you and obviously through you to your constituents. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Are there any more comments? Seeing none, we will move on. I'll give this to you. Next item is the consent agenda. Tonight we have licenses and the treasurer's reports. We need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Any questions, comments? Seeing none, we have motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Stray.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Shaw.
Aye. Okay, moving on to committee reports. We didn't have committee meetings tonight, so whatever we were going to discuss, we will have it presented here for the whole council to hear. Under public services, the first item is consider act on a resolution 20-R2864 awarding the 2020 Street Improvement Program contract. I'll turn it over to Mark. When he's done, as far as questions, and we'll work together and go from there, so.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mayor. The item we're going to talk about tonight is the 2020 street maintenance projects. This year is probably one of the larger projects that I think this council has seen, or myself has seen, going through multiple years. We had many items, and all this information is in the recommendation that's in the packet, but for reconstruction, we were looking at Forest Street and then Elizabeth Street. That's in conjunction with storm sewer and stormwater pond. The Zachery Trail extension, we bid out phase 1 earlier, and this is going to be phase 2, which would complete that project. We'd pulverize and overlay on Anderson and Juneau. Later in the meeting, we'll talk about how we had to remove those. Marks Road, Frederick Court, Crystal Lake Drive, Bartlett and Dutchess are all on there. As known that we were going to be bidding out the public safety facility parking lot as part of our street project versus a construction project. Commonwealth Square water main extension, that's in conjunction with the Forest Street Pond project. We have a water main that they're going to abandon in order for the pond to be constructed. Wastewater treatment plant parking lot, and then Wayland Drive and Schumacher Streets. That's an item that's been on a couple of the projects. This is up on the Northeast region area, so walking through the project areas, we have Crystal Lake, we have Wayland and Schumacher in this area, Juneau, Anderson, way down here is Beach Road. We come back, we got the police station parking lot, the Forest Street project, Frederick Court, Zachery Trail, the water main extension from Oconomowoc Square, Dutchess and Bartlett, and then to the west is Marks Road project. So we also had some alternates that were in the bid. These were fairly minor, and we are recommending to do most of those, and we'll talk about that later. Bids came in higher than what we would have liked to have seen as we worked through the different departments working together and then working with the contractor. We found items that we could remove. We would have liked to have done everything, but as you can see by the cost of the reduction of 1.1 million, this was well over our budget, and we weren't going to be bringing that to the council. We had some We had some alternatives that, do fall within the budget. Zachery Trail reinforcement, some water lateral and vertical offsets, Roosevelt Park sidewalk and Zachery Trail sanitary sewer lining. So the big project is the 4th Street project. I'll orient everybody. Here's Roosevelt Park, the parking lot, 4th Street coming up, and then here's the high school parking lot. So our project originally was to start at Elizabeth and Oak Street, and the storm sewer was going to come up Elizabeth, turn the corner, and then go down Forest. One of the things we knew that we were going to have some deep storm sewer doing that route. I had selected that route over the original one because those 2 streets needed work, where Westover and Oak Street didn't. As we got into the design and started looking at the depth of the storm sewer, we knew that we were going to see some significant costs. So we did change the plan so that we are now taking the larger 36-inch storm sewer down Oak Street to Westover to Forest. So that was one of the things that we did change in the design. The large storm sewer at this intersection becomes a 42-inch, and then that'll run all the way down through the parking lot and into where the pond will be down on this end. We got a couple block area here that has no sidewalk on the south side of the street. That'll be going as part of this project to get pedestrian connectivity through the area. We also have, and it was noted in the recommendation, that there is a piece of sanitary sewer that we weren't planning on having to relay, but once again, once we got into the design, it was in conflict with the 42-inch storm sewer, so that piece had to be relayed between Silver Lake Street and Westover. Here's the parking lot, so here's the intersection with Main Street. We're doing some reconfiguring in there. The new parking lot is gonna have curb and gutter on it, and instead of guardrail, we'll have some storm sewer. Here's the sidewalk that, you know, the parks had in as part of one of their alternates that continues down through here. This is the access to Imagination Station, and then this is the trailhead. And you can see where the pond is going to be. Pond itself is roughly 1.5 acres in size. The wet area, the area that'll more than likely stay wet, is 5 feet deep. Then it has an additional 5 feet of storage above that before it starts overflow, and then has 3 feet of emergency storage above that. Zachery Trail project, I know that we've talked about this quite a bit, but a couple things that we're doing and some of the alternates. So the alternate for reinforcing the curb was about a $15,000 adder to the project is for the area within the wetlands. One of the things that we know is that that area is more susceptible to settling and some moving, so we wanted to run reinforcement bar through the curb so that the curb will stay set, and we can just worry about the asphalt through that area. Our wastewater department is also looking then, they have sanitary sewer that comes through here, comes to a manhole, and then comes down. They want to get that lined as part of this project, so that was the $75,000 that they were looking for there. We're also looking to add in a crosswalk that isn't there now, right now, on Riverwood. Sidewalk comes to an end right at this area. We'd extend sidewalk around, cross over, and then bring that up to connect through, and that'll add for pedestrian connectivity from the subdivisions to the west over to both St. Jerome's and the school. Public safety facility, the parking lot project. So here's the layout that we have right now. Up in this area, one of the things the council wanted and requested was that we move the driveway and increase our green area and have a straight shot through here. So we have taken care of that. As noted, in the parking lot, we're reducing the thickness of the asphalt from 5 inches down to 4, and that was a cost savings thing. For many years, we have used 4 inches as a thickness on asphalt, but I would have preferred to see the 5, but you know, when we were over budget and looking for ways to reduce that cost, that's what we also looked at. These rectangles here, these are the seat wall planters that were referenced. We have 14 total showing on here. We're gonna remove 5 of them in order to get our costs down. We're gonna look at these 4 here, one up on this end, and then reconfigure where this one sits. We're also gonna have security fencing that's gonna go around this area here. This has been talked about as we went through the design. There'll be a sliding gate here and then another gate here. So this will be a secure parking area. This is the access back into the building, into the parking area there. We're doing some planting areas versus just grass. We're going to have 3 flag poles. This was something from architectural up in this area. It's stamped concrete through there. This is just a real quick cross-section view of the seat wall planter. It's about 21 inches high, modular block, allows people to have a comfortable height to sit. The wastewater treatment plant project, this is their main building, so their main parking lot, so that's the area that we're working on predominantly this year. There's some work over by their finals building that we weren't able to complete last year because of costs that we're going to now be able to do. Marks Road. Marks Road, we're doing in conjunction with the town of Oconomowoc. Town of Oconomowoc reached out to us actually last year, but we were too far into our budget process, so we did not do anything then, but it's a very bad section of road. So we're picking up from Frontier and then coming to where the city limits is. The town owns the north side of the road, we own the south. That's why we're working together on that. The road is currently rated a 3. As you can see that even this time of year, it has a temporary speed limit of 20 miles an hour. It's an extremely rough road. It definitely needs work. The last project that we're adding in is Beach Road, and that's in conjunction with the village of Oconomowoc Lake. Now, the city now owns the entire right-of-way through this section. Prior to its attachment in January, we only had the west side. And so now that's completely ours, it's now our responsibility to do all of it versus just half. The village, in reaching out, they were planning on redoing all of Beach Road this spring. So this was bid out as part of their work, and we got a very, very good price on that. Here's a picture of Beach Road. They got, areas that are quite a few potholes, and there's still potholes there. So then we get into our costs. So the original bid was $6.3 million. We asked to remove 1.1. The alternates that we put back in were about $190,000 for about $5.39 million. We have all the projects listed down the left, the base construction bid, any alternate costs that we're adding in, the design costs, direct purchase costs. I probably should have touched on that, I apologize. So we'll be coming up to that. I'll get to it. So we have a direct purchase. We estimated a 7% construction management. We're in the process right now of obtaining proposals for that work. So we just put that in as a placeholder. And then to go along with how projects have been approved at the council, we also added in a 10% contingency. So all these things are in the final numbers that you see. As you can see, the streets came within, $150. The wastewater was $103,000, and then the electric had a little bit more. And then we have the 2 projects down at the bottom, and those are both of them went to town, so we're showing them separate. Well, one town, one village. So in order to complete the work that I've just got done talking about, we'll need to look at doing budget amendments or adjusting some of the projects. The street projects are over by $120,000, and that's the cost of Marks Road at 60 and West Beach Road at 60. And for that, we would be requesting that an additional borrowing, which we're in the process of doing now. The council had provided the go-ahead to start the borrowing process for 2020 and 2021 streets. So we're asking for that. The wastewater budget is being asked to be amended by $120,000. As I'd mentioned, there was a sanitary sewer that was not originally taken into consideration and budgeted for that needs to be relayed in the 4th Street project. So this will cover that expenditure. And then the public safety facility lights, that was the one item that I probably should have talked about at the public safety facility, but all along that when we were talking about that project, we had $500,000 budgeted in the street work. There was $100,000 through the public safety building project, so we had $600,000. We had always had planned on the electric utility installing and maintaining those lights as they do in the other parking lots. The fact that the project didn't get approved until mid-September, quite frankly, it didn't get added to the budget. And so that's why they have that large budget amendment that we're asking for in the amount of $280,000. So that's $133,000 for the work and then another $120,000 for the fixtures. So that's everything. I guess one of the things I'd like to talk about real quick is Zachery Trail. We did bid out now the second phase. So we had bid out that project in April of 2019. That cost had come in right around 2.2 million. Council opted not to move forward with that. Our total cost right now with all engineering and everything, estimated in is 1.6. So we're saving about $600,000 on this. That's roughly $200,000 for St. Jerome's and $400,000 for the city. And that's a complete project with the boardwalk. When we talked about it in April, we were pulling out $400,000 because we felt the cost of the boardwalk was high. Correct.
So that should be added into it.
Yeah.
Too. It's not part of the tax.
Right, so water, wastewater, that's part of their enterprise funds and their budget. And then the police station is being funded separately. Zachery Trail is a separate fund, that is the impact fee. So quite a few different revenue sources. But overall, we're within, 400, 500,000 on a $6.3 million bid. So been nice if we were under, but we have a lot of big projects that we're looking to get done this year.
We'll open it up for discussion. One of the things, is it, we need one
Thirds.
two-thirds, it's a two-thirds vote since this is a budget amendment, so we have to have 6 of the 7 aldermen vote in favor of this. Is it just one vote, though? Okay, so it's one vote.
It's in the resolution.
It's in the
Everything's
resolution.
in the resolution.
Okay. So just so we all know that it's, but that's why I wanted to bring out the funding sources, that the ones that impact the tax levy are more of the budget, the ones that are in the waste, or in the water, and in the, is it wastewater or water?
Wastewater and electric.
Wastewater, electric, and impact fees does not affect the tax levy at all. So we'll open it up for questions. Matt?
Yeah, I'll rock
You
and
want me to
roll.
move right away, or you want to just,
What's that?
you want to talk to him?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine. First question right out of the gate. I was a little confused, but your last comment was the entire Zachery Trail project is coming in at 1.6 million?
Correct,
That includes the sidewalk and everything?
yes.
Just the extension.
Just the extension?
Yeah.
Oh, not,
We haven't even talked about the rebuild.
not the rebuild phase. Okay, this is just the extension. And it includes, you said it includes
The boardwalk.
the little boardwalk?
Yep.
Wow, okay, that's great.
Yeah, no, it
Okay.
was very, very basic.
We saved 600,000.
Public safety facility parking lot, I'm sure you knew this was gonna be one of my big questions. You said that we've always thought about putting this in the electric utility, but this is the first time that I've heard of us having to spend somewhere another $280,000 on this project, in addition to what we're already spending. Was that mentioned somewhere? Do you recall anybody mentioning this, that this was?
I do not recall it being brought up specifically at any meeting, but it's, when you look at the campus lot and the parking lot that's behind here, that's how those projects were handled, that it's metered separately, and then the electric utility pays the cost of installing and providing the light fixtures, and then going forward, they charge a monthly charge for the fixtures, and it's theirs to then maintain, which is a lot better deal for the city having our own electric utility doing that work.
So how are we paying for that? Is that coming out of rate? Is that borrowed money from
yeah,
electric?
that-
Do we know how we're paying for that, Joe?
It would come out of electric reserves.
Okay, do we have enough to cover that without increasing rates or doing anything else? Okay, so reserve fund. You said the enterprise fund for the wastewater budget, 120. I don't have a lot of issues with that, but there's enough funds there for that as well?
Yes.
Okay. Now, even though we're increasing our budget for streets overall by about $120,000, we took 2 streets out, Elizabeth Street and Anderson and Juneau, 3 streets out.
Yes.
So did other things come up higher then? Were other items higher budgeted then?
So one of the things that is different this year, and it wasn't in our original budgeting estimates, is the 10% contingency that we're now showing, so that that's being accounted for. That's roughly $500,000 of monies that, in past years when we would have come and talked about the projects, we would have talked about the bids just as they were and talked about how they compared to the budget. So now going forward, where we now talk about the 10% contingency, we show that as a separate item. So that's what impacted us, the most.
Roosevelt Park sidewalk, where is that? I don't know if that was in the plans you showed, but where is that gonna go?
So here's, this is South Main Street, Roosevelt Park's up here, Imagination Station's over here. So we're gonna be installing sidewalk along the south side of Forest Street, starting at Silver Lake Street and going to the west. And that'll continue through, and then when it hits the park project, right here by Main Street, it'll be this sidewalk here, coming down, it runs the full length of the parking lot, continues down here, and then ties into, this is the trailhead area for the
Okay.
Lake Country
That was
Trail.
gonna be my next question, is it,
Yes.
does it tie into that
Yes.
area? Okay, good. One last question about the planters. We removed some of these planters or bollards or something in front of the public safety building. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
Were all of these bollards part of the plans? I guess I know that we had talked about some of those things. Were they part of the final architectural plans?
They were not part of the final architectural. This was something that we started looking at during our design of the work up here. We wanted to have something along the front there that would help protect the front of the building, and then also keep pedestrians. Pedestrians would be able to walk through here, but it acts as somewhat of a barrier if someone were to come up over the curb, that we would have those planters there in place.
When was that added in, back in?
This was during the design, so this was after our final conversations that we had with the council on this. It wasn't until we started looking at the design of the parking lot that we felt that we should have something along there. It also allows us to do plantings in there. There's not a lot of areas for plantings within the parking lot, so that's
Right.
why those were added in.
Because I seem to recall during the discussion, and we had quite a few committee of the whole meetings discussing this, where there were planters, and I think my recollection was that we had said in the committee of the whole that we didn't want those, that we didn't need those, we didn't want to spend the money on that, because it was more aesthetics than practical. So, I'm probably still gonna vote for everything, but I'm very disheartened that these got added back in. And I'm curious what each one costs. What are they, 20 grand each?
4,000.
4,000 each? And then they, of course, have to be maintained. Do they have water in them to water the plants that are gonna be planted in there?
No.
Sprinklers or anything?
No, well, we have hose bibs across the front of the building that will be able to do that. There's 14 on the drawing, we're taking away 5.
So we're left with 9?
Correct.
Are we left with 14 or are we left with 9?
No, there's 14 on the
14,
drawing now, we'll
right.
be removing 5 for a remainder of 9.
Okay.
And are these more for safety than for aesthetics?
You know, they do both. It adds some landscaping across the front of the building when there's, nothing that's there now, but then it also is there to be a deterrent for someone to be able to potentially drive up over the curb and towards the building.
You had mentioned Beach Road. Do we own Beach Road now?
Yes. Well, we own the portion of Beach Road that's along the Southwood subdivision. So starting up here, we own the entire width of the road all the way down through here. Prior to its attachment in January, we were only responsible for the west half of the road.
Also, as far as the town and the village is concerned, with the road projects, how much of that what's the percentage of, are they paying as compared to us?
So we're responsible for 100% of the costs here. The village of Oconomowoc Lake bid out, I'm sorry.
The town.
Okay, so the town of Oconomowoc, we both have half of the street on Marks Road. The town has the north half, we have the south half, so we're splitting the total cost of that 50/50.
50/50?
Yes.
And then as far as the village now,
Yeah, so the
that's
village,
100% us?
so the village is 100% ours just in that stretch. The village is doing the rest of Beach Road going to the north.
Yeah, I do. As long as we're on Marks Road, how did we end up with the south end when there's still property that the town of Oconomowoc owns, right as you come in off of Marks Road?
So,
The house there and all the land there and,
so here's the line, here's the city. So everything from going here, it's Rockville, and that's in Exonia. Everything going east from there, the north half is the town of Oconomowoc, and the south half is the city.
But there's there's a beauty salon and a house next to it on the south end of there that's owned by that's in the town. No, I'm talking about Marks Road. Yeah,
Oh, up
and
here?
Then you go around, and then
Oh.
you go around on the curb there.
Yeah,
That's
so,
owned by-
so this section of Marks Road was actually done in coordination with the town of Oconomowoc, I believe in 2010. We did the same cooperation where it was a 50-50 cost share because they have the north side of the road and we have the south.
Do you ever get paid for Chafee Road from the town? Chafee Road on the other side of railroad tracks? And do we ever get paid for Rutland Road from
So-
the town when we did that part,
So,
which is all
so
town?
Redland Road north of the tracks is 100% city. So that was ours. When the town did the area south of the tracks, just through that low wet area, they actually didn't charge the city for any of that. They also did then the Chafee Road portion because 100% of that is within the town, so they paid 100% of that cost.
Good. And then where's this crosswalk gonna go? You're talking about over by the mayor's office, or by his house, sorry.
It's on Glenwood, it's right across from St. Jerome's Church.
What is that gonna do besides impede traffic on Silver Lake Street?
But right now, there's no pedestrian connectivity coming from Riverwood Trail subdivision to be able to cross the street there. And so as part of our project, we're going to be adding in this crosswalk that'll allow the people to either get onto the multi-use path and boardwalk and go up to the back entrance to the high school, allow them to get to St. Jerome's, or they can turn and go to the north and go to Bolson Drive. But it'll allow for pedestrian connectivity through there that isn't there now.
Are you gonna put flashing lights up there or stop sign?
You know,
or-
right now, you know, this is the county's jurisdiction. We're looking at just the standard signage for right now. But as we know with other crossings in the city, we do review them.
Can't we do it right?
Yeah.
To begin with? And put up the signage that we know is gonna be the best for the safety of those who are crossing.
Well, you know, there's a lot of concerns when it comes to a flashing site in that it gives a false sense of security. So you really want to place those in areas that probably more warrant them with the amount of traffic and crossings. When you look at the one by the community center, the reason why that went in there was we had seen a couple accidents that were actually due because cars stopped, and then it was cars 3 or 4 back that didn't realize people were crossing, and there was accidents as a result of that. Plus, there's a lot of pedestrian crossing there. The one that we recently talked about on Lake Drive up on the north end of the city that has, you know, 4,800 cars per day going through there at 35 miles an hour plus. And it's probably the lack of pedestrian crossings up there that makes it a little bit more dangerous crossing because the drivers going through that area aren't always looking for pedestrians.
I'd like to see that sign heavier, with lights. You're gonna go a lot. I don't wanna wait till somebody gets hurt there before we evaluate that. That's gonna be something we should do right up
Yeah.
front.
Well, you know, this is a county's permit, and at this time, we were just looking at standard signage there.
There is one on, to the,
Yeah.
pedestrian crossing there. That's served its purpose for the years of.
Yeah, that's a concern of mine also. How much is this going to, this connectivity is gonna cost? Is this an additional cost, or is this already put in the 1.6?
So that's part of the Zachery Trail cost that we've talked about. It's included in there.
So if we were to go ahead and we were to put just the ballpark, the lights there for the pedestrians, what would the cost associated be there? Plus or minus, I won't hold you to it.
No, I'm trying to remember because I came to the council with the Lake Drive.
5 or
I
6
think it's,
grand?
you know, around $8,000 for the signage and then labor to put in. So we were probably in the $10,000 to $13,000 range for that crossing.
If you want, yeah, if you want my vote on this, it's gonna need some signage and lights.
Well, you know, at the end of the day, I'm thinking about the safety of the community, and there's gonna be, including myself, I kind of walk that sometimes, and I'd really like to see, I mean, if we're already under by what'd you say, 6,000? 600,000? I don't see why we can't put some lights there.
One of the nice things about that.
Mm-hmm. Even at night?
Wait, are we talking lights? I thought we were talking about flashing, like.
Flashing lights.
Crosswalk.
Right, crosswalk, that's correct,
Lights,
yes.
just like over
So
at the community
One
center.
on one side, one on the other side.
Yep.
Right.
If we're already doing this with TIF funding, or not TIF funding, impact fee funding, why not try to add that on now?
Yep.
Right.
Ken?
Heard.
Well, it's county's jurisdiction, so we will need
Make a
permit.
request to them.
We've already started our request for
Okay.
that and had the discussion with them, and that's why I know that they weren't leaning towards us doing anything other than the standard signage.
But they weren't leaning for us to do stoplights on Highway P when we were looking to do the northeast corridor either, but we mandated that for safety reasons. I think that was the right move there, and I
Yeah,
think.
why would they care for paying for it if it's
Right.
part of the impact
Well,
fee?
there's liabilities and, you know, when people look at how you handle pedestrian crossings, signalized intersections, whether or not you do them, there's a lot of numbers that go into that, and you don't want to, you know, do the false sense of security, you don't want to have lights that aren't necessary, because then the traffic gets used to that, and it just leads to other issues. So that's why there's a whole science. I mean, there's people out there that's their only job is doing traffic impact analysis and looking at those types of things, no different than the whole. Well, you know, this wouldn't get into warrants because we're not talking signals, but I know that in order to get the one on Lake Drive, the county's looking for us to take 100% liability for anything that happens there, because they don't think that the flashing light should be there.
We should do this project right the first time. And it just makes sense at this time to put those in, because the other argument there is if we decide to do it at a later time, it could be more money. So it just makes sense. Is there a way that you can talk to whomever and?
We would go back to the Waukesha County and discuss that with them.
Can you please?
Yeah, one of the things you have to think about.
Right.
The high school, yeah. That's
Right.
gonna get busy when the kids are crossing.
I don't see a problem with that.
I think the safest solution is not even do it. Well, we're arguing about something that, you know, we've already got so much tied up with that Thackeray Trail, it's unbelievable. But, you know, you said it yourself. We've had that crosswalk and we've had no problems with it.
Well, I think the crosswalk's a good idea, but it's such a wide open, visible area, you
Yeah.
can see both directions.
I mean, it's bad enough we got
Crosswalks.
19 frickin' stoplights in this town. Now we're gonna add on some other places to divert it? I mean, goodness gracious.
Well,
2 more weeks to complain.
Well, if, is there any more discussion on this?
On the whole project?
I
No.
just,
Go
I
ahead.
agree with Tom, and when a couple people say, let's do this right the first time, how do we know putting the flashing lights is doing it right the first time? I'd like some more information. I like what Mark had to say, you know, the experts are basically telling us that it's not warranted at this time, so that's where I'm at with it.
Real quick.
Go ahead.
The experts tend to warrant those safety enhancements after incident, more times than not. So on the bypass, they didn't have the stoplights there until there were people that were injured or I don't know if there was anybody killed.
Yeah.
So, you know, again, this is right next to a K-3 through 8 and on the way to the high school. It's being put in, I think appropriately for connectivity, pedestrian connectivity. It's gonna be used. If it's not gonna be used, then yeah, don't put it there. But I think it's gonna be utilized. So if it's gonna be utilized,
The crosswalk will be utilized.
Yeah.
The need for the lights, I'm not sure. Go ahead, Tom.
Let me take you back to those stoplights out there.
Tom, can you please speak into your mic? Thank you.
Lysol. You know, back then, you know, the original design around that area out there was like 30 years prior to putting the thing up. And they never changed the design of that particular thing. Back then, there was farm fields and this and that. So they didn't do anything. And then all of a sudden, all the accidents come up and they realize, well, geez, we never planned on that. 30 years that thing sat there was gonna go through.
You're
So,
talking about the bypass.
Yes.
Yeah.
right,
so you talked about the accidents or whatever, but that was a bonehead play from,
right. Well, sorry.
Go ahead.
It's the same here. You know, Thackeray Trail has been planned for 50 years. There's been new development and new population growth there. Again, so we deal with this more often than not in regards to safety, whether it's downtown at crosswalks in the northeast side for pedestrian crossings on Highway Z. It continuously comes up. There really isn't another crosswalk area on Silver Lake going east to west that has a lighted signage area for that kind of pedestrian traffic. So it makes sense to go here. I'm not in question of a need for a crosswalk there. I'd like to see it with lights and with, you know, the state law, little sign that says, due to state law, please stop. The more signage you can put there that brings attention to that, I think the safer, the actual safety of those pedestrians is impacted. It's not perception, it's in actuality.
Okay. Matt?
Yeah, a couple, just on the crosswalk thing, I think I think everyone should still vote for this. I'm gonna swallow hard and vote for it as well. And I have a lot more fundamental problems with how some of these projects are going, but we should just ask Mark to reach out to the county some more on it and see if they're interested in the flashing, if we can get them done, great. If they say we're not interested right now, maybe at some point, you know, that's something we pursue in the future, but I'd encourage you, whether they're flashing or not flashing, that we vote for this. The Thackeray Trail, one other last technical question, then I just have a general comment. The Thackeray Trail reinforced curb, we're putting that over the area where the boardwalk is going, correct?
So it'll be the curb and gutter going through the the
Trail
area
area.
of the wetlands.
Oh, the wetlands, okay.
So where that boardwalk is, that is the wetlands area, so the curb on each side of the street will have rebar in it that runs continuous, and it keeps the joints from settling. differently.
This was a good catch. I'm just wondering why our engineers, when they designed it, didn't catch this initially. Did you catch this, that this should be reinforced here? Because it's a good catch, whoever caught it.
Yeah, I did.
I have
We actually looked at several options through there, one of it being concrete through the wetland area. That got taken out because of the cost versus the asphalt. We're also looking that it's probably gonna settle, but the continuous curb is something that we have on Oconomowoc Parkway, so it is in different areas of the city, but.
Our engineer didn't recommend this reinforced?
No, we had added it in as an alternate as part of the bid process. So when the bids went out, this was already in there. This wasn't something that was picked up afterwards.
do we get a rebate from Rupert Melke for that, because what you did?
Pardon?
Do we get a rebate back from Rupert Melke, but they were the engineer, right?
Correct.
Well, you did their work, so we should get money back, or you should get it,
Tom, you beat me to the punch on that one.
yeah.
So a couple of real quick comments. With regard to I'm going to vote for the entire budget amendment tonight just because we have more important things to talk about. There's a lot more important things going on in the world. But this is a big budget item. A couple things I'm concerned about. Number one, we never heard prior to the vote on the public safety building that there's gonna be an extra $280,000. Now, maybe we should have thought back at the project and thought, man, there's probably gonna be lights in there, right? Someone's gonna pay for the lights, but that was never mentioned. It's another item on that big ticket item that we just didn't know about until we sat here today. That's $280,000, even though it's coming out of reserve money through the electric budget. Ratepayers are paying for that in some fashion, which means taxpayers are paying for it. With the 36,000 extra in the planters or bollards, which we did not approve, and which we had specifically, I believe, in previous meetings pulled out of the plans, that's an extra $36,000. In the last change orders I saw on the public safety building, we're $65,000 over right now. That means right now, as of tonight, this project is $381,000 plus what we had approved. I also, and again, I'm gonna vote for everything tonight, but I wanna make it clear what my objections and problems are. I also don't like that we are combining 3 different votes into one resolution. And maybe it was done for ease, but we're amending the budget for the street projects. Then we're amending the wastewater budget, and then amending the electric utility budget. I would like to vote against the electric utility budget amendment, because I think that we should have been told about this beforehand. But I can't because they're all together. Now, I could pull them out, but that's a lot of rigmarole, and it's probably gonna pass anyway. We have one less person on council tonight. But I think these things, if they're going to be budget amendments, should be separate items. I think it gives us a chance to discuss them separately and potentially vote something separately. The way it is right now, they're all together, and again, I could pull them out, but at this point, I think we're too far down the rabbit hole that we need to get these things approved and finalized and move on. So that's my rant for tonight, for whatever it's worth.
Before he goes.
A second.
What's that?
I second your rant.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I agree with
I would agree that any budget amendment should be separated out, and we do have 3 budget amendments in this one vote. I'm not a big fan of that. And I would like, just on record, I know we're not gonna do anything with it right now, but that you will engage with the county for the signage.
That's correct.
Okay.
Well, the signage will be there, but the lights is what you're talking about.
The enhanced, we'll call it an enhanced crosswalk, and that'll come to council for consideration prior to the completion of that extension. Yes?
Well, I'm assuming if they allow it to go in, we would just move forward with that work. And if for some reason it wasn't, I would report back to the council
Okay.
on that.
All right, thank you.
We don't have a motion yet, do we?
No, we do not.
We would need a motion then to consider acting on resolution 20-R 2864, awarding the 2020 street improvement program contract. Do we have that motion?
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
Any other discussion? Seeing this does take a supermajority vote, so. Call the roll, please.
Alderman Ellis?
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg?
Aye.
Alderman Stray?
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski?
Aye.
Alderman Rogers?
Aye.
Alderman Rozak?
Aye.
Alderman Shaw?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to the next item, consider act on resolution 20-R 2861, awarding Blaine Street Blaine Street Park Tennis Court Reconstruction Contract. We need a motion to approve the resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Mark, or who's gonna, Craig?
Thank you, good evening. I'm gonna go low tech, so don't look up at the screen. The project we're talking about tonight is the Blaine Street Tennis Courts, and it would consist of full reconstruction of the tennis courts, which would be 2 of them, and a half-court basketball court, new fencing, color coding, and court line installation, which will have both tennis lines and pickleball lines. We sent out the bids for public construction and received 6 back, which we're happy about. And you have them before you. The low ranged from $94,311, and the high was $132,639. The low bid is from PLM Paving and Concrete in the amount of $94,311. We'll be asking for a 10% contingency tonight of $9,431. This is under our $120,000 project estimate and what's in the budget. One thing I do want to caution us at, because we've had experience in Blaine Street before with our playground, I believe it's an old dump site, and we will probably run into some soil issues. So A lot of this contingency will be used for undercutting, proof rolling, additional stone, maybe some additional fencing. We plan on this all being under budget, but we may need to come back because based on Lily Park from last year, their contingency ended up at about 11.4%. So just a word of caution on that. We have reviewed all the bids, obviously checked references for the lowest qualified bidder. PLM Paving and Concrete has done work for the city previously, including successful completion of both Lily Park and Westover Park Tennis Court. Based on the references and our positive experiences, staff would recommend awarding the contract to PLM Paving and Concrete in the amount of $94,311, plus a 10% contingency of $9,431, for a total of $103,742. I'd like to thank Brian Spencer for his work on this, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Question? Do we have any questions for Greg?
Seeing how it came under budget, can we give him approval to administratively approve any changes up to $120,000 as part of the motion? I'll make the
Add
motion.
that to the motion.
He'll put
Yeah,
a new
I'll
pier
make the-
in.
I'll then make the motion to, do we already have a motion?
Yeah.
Oh, then I'll amend the motion.
Just move to amend it.
Yeah, I'll move to amend the motion then to allow Mr. Hopner, our Director of Park and Recs, to, or would that go, Park and Rec or DPW? Park and Rec?
Park and Rec.
To, up to the budget amount of $120,000 to add whatever needs to get done for the project up to $120,000. Does that make sense? I don't know.
I'm going to second that.
You gotta be, I don't know if you gotta be more specific, because, I mean, he's at 95,000, what's he gonna add? Gold-plated?
Yeah.
You have other project elements that aren't in this that will be,
Well,
Right.
I understand that, but when you say anything, that's kind of
Yeah,
open-ended.
that's true. That's poorly worded. So so the amendment could be as follows, that we'll allow the Park and Recs Director to approve additional monies up to, including up to $120,000 for soils or other problems with the construction.
Okay, I think that sounds better.
Okay.
Second.
Second. So this is an amendment to the original motion. Do we have any other questions? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second on the amendment. Call the roll, please.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Stray.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Shaw.
Aye.
So now the motion is amended. Do we have any questions on the amended motion? Seeing none, call the roll, please.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Stray.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Shaw.
Aye.
Okay, under Plan Commission, we have one item. Consider act on condominium plat for Vespera 2, Phase 1, located on the northeast corner of Valley Road and St. Andrews Drive. We need a motion to approve the condominium plat.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Oh, it's just,
We,
we'll do this first. I've skipped it, so. Go ahead, Jason.
Good evening. The Plan Commission item is for Vespera Part 2, Phase 2. It's a condominium plat. This is the first phase. It consists of 4 residential duplex units. Most likely, the remainder of the development will come back in 2 additional phases. This phase that you're acting on tonight does match the general development plan that the Common Council members acted on. On March 11th, the Plan Commission did recommend approval of the condominium plat to the Common Council. And the applicant's not here this evening, but he does appreciate you keeping this on the agenda. And he's asking for action this evening. Any questions, I'll be available. Thank you.
Any questions for Jason? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second to approve the condominium plat. Call the roll, please.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman
Aye.
Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Stray.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Shaw.
Aye.
Going back to utility, we have consider act on a resolution 20-R2862 awarding underground utilities locating service contract and authorized budget amendment. We have a motion to approve the resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Good evening. Tonight, before you, I need to give you just a little bit of history lesson before to kind of understand why this is coming up right now. prior to 2008, the electric utility did all its own underground wire locating. And at 2008, I'm sure the management at the time decided it was probably less costly to go out and get these locates done by a private contractor. At the time, the amount of locates coming into the city and the construction that was going on was very low. This type of contract, you pay by the ticket. So at that time, I was looking back at contracts, and you were in at $8.50 per ticket for somebody to come in and locate that. The contract was a perpetual contract. As long as either party decided that they didn't have any issues, there were small little increments of increases contractually, and that service has been in place by USAC till tonight. They came to me a little while back, approximately 3 months ago, said they wanted to increase their rates to $14 per ticket. I had already had the budget done. I had $70,000 in the budget. Historically, that's what we always spent. Going to the $14 a ticket from the $10.75 a ticket would have increased by about $42,000. So there's a problem right there. I told them no, that wasn't acceptable, and I wanted to get quotes from other companies to do this. So I reached out to 4 companies that do locating in the southeast Wisconsin area, from basically Dane County over to Manitowoc, south of Fox Valley to the Illinois border. One didn't answer any calls, emails. The other one just flat turned us down because we don't have our maps electronically. I did get a quote from Excel Underground Locating, which is up in the Fox Valley area, and I got one from USIC, who has been our locator over the past however many years that is, from '08 to today. So as you can see, the numbers, the biggest one to look at here, because we don't use the after hours, all of our guys, current linemen, do all the after hours locating. So the big one, the price per standard ticket at $11 is equal per the two. And then on the bottom, the other note is the contract terms. USIC wanted a 3% increase every year. The other company would hold it flat for 3 years. I'm asking you to consider using USIC for continuity reasons for this particular year at $11. My thought here, looking at the volume and the construction that goes on in this community, and the way, if you look on the second page, in 2016, we had 4,530 tickets. Last year, we had 6,611, and we're projecting around 7,500 tickets for 2020. And you start looking at the cost, I believe that it bears taking a good hard look at and bringing that service back in, hiring an individual to locate. That individual would not just locate the electric utilities, they would also locate the water, the sewer, the storm sewer when they went out. Right now, the way it's set up, just the electric utility pays to have a service done to locate because of the volume of the tickets. All the other departments use their own in-house people to locate. I think there's a lot of synergies by bringing this back in-house, hiring an individual to do this. I don't have all the numbers done yet. I still need to look at it through this budget cycle. And for that reason, I would like to continue with USIC for this 1 year.
Any questions?
Yeah, so then the annual 3% increase wouldn't be part of this
No, it wouldn't increase
discussion at all?
3%. My plan would be by April 1 of 2021, we would have someone in-house to take care of it.
Any other questions? Okay, we have a motion and a second to act on a resolution to award underground utility locating service and authorize the budget amendment. Again, this would need a supermajority vote. Call the roll, please.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Stray.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Shaw.
Aye.
Okay, moving on to new business. Consider act on revised pandemic preparedness plan and COVID-19 response matters. I'm assuming that Sarah will take over this. Do you want to do it from there? Or?
I can go either way.
Well, You can do it there, and I'll
Okay,
just
all
wait
right.
here.
Let me,
Everybody knows what this is all about, right? Have been watching
Yes.
COVID-19, you've been watching TV?
Oh, my gosh. No, Rose had
so
said
as
the
you
same.
know, this has been a rapidly evolving matter, the COVID-19, and we have really been monitoring it closely. We're taking action as necessary. I want to update you briefly on where things are at as far as I understand them from before we came upstairs tonight. There's a number of policy considerations for the council to discuss, and then ultimately, I think there's 2 action items for the council to approve an updated pandemic plan and then consider an emergency declaration resolution, which is being passed around. So as far as an update, just late this afternoon, Governor Evers released his latest emergency declaration number 5. And you may have heard this already on the news, but it prohibits mass gatherings of 10 people or more. It exempts state and local government facilities. It ordered all bars and restaurants to close today at 5, except for like takeout delivery. And all schools shall remain closed for the duration of the public health emergency. The governor's press release today said that we are starting to see community spread of COVID-19 in Wisconsin, which means people who have tested positive have had no exposures to a known case, nor did they travel to a location with known community spread. So the latest numbers as of this afternoon is we've got 72 positive results in Wisconsin, 4 of them in Waukesha County. So all state and federal agencies are imploring that the public take this seriously and they do their part to help prevent the spread, to help mitigate the impacts. You've heard a lot probably about efforts to flatten the curve, to slow the spread so our healthcare and response system isn't overwhelmed. So what has the city done to date? Immediately, we increased the daily disinfecting and sanitation work in all of our facilities. This has been evolving, but where we're at today is that the library closed on Monday. All our recreation programs have been canceled. With the governor's declaration today of the mass gatherings of the 10 or more prohibited, we're reaching out to our private events at the community center that are scheduled as well to cancel those. We're trying to limit in-person contact when able, so non-critical items and meetings and things, we're trying to reduce those. We're encouraging people to access our city services online when possible or call us. A big question that's been out there is the elections. At this point, the elections are still scheduled for April 7th, and absentee voting is being highly encouraged to try to get people to vote through that process versus coming to the polls. That's putting a lot of pressure on our city clerk's office. We're getting a lot of activity in that department for absentee and registration process. So that's kind of where we're at to date. What we've been doing then is reviewing our pandemic plan and business continuity plans, working with all of the departments on that. In front of you tonight is a revised pandemic plan for your consideration. And I handed one of the handouts that came around. There's a couple of tweaks that Tony, our HR manager, as we keep reviewing this over and over, there's little things that we find that we want to tweak. So that came around, so there's some minor tweaks for you to look at there. The past pandemic plans that the city had were really developed and tailored to specific pandemics like H1N1 and SARS. And so this plan is more of a generalized plan to apply to all pandemics to be able to give us some flexibility in the future, and it's more comprehensive than we've had in the past. The section that was added was on employee absences and city policy, and this is where I really think the council needs to look at this tonight and have that policy discussion about what we want to do there. So we've put together some information there for you in the plan that you received in your packet to give some consideration to. So I'll go over those items in a minute. Moving on from the pandemic plan, I think there's other policy considerations for the council to think about. I'm just going to we can go through them in depth in a minute, but I just kind of want to say them so they're in your head as we start the discussion. We should talk about whether we're going to close or limit our city hall and a community center access to the public. What impacts that may have, how do we handle our employees in that case? How do you handle services? So closures and cancellations. Another item that we're getting questions from our employees on is, does the city want to require employees to quarantine themselves after they've traveled out of state? So if they go on vacation or they go visit family in another state, are you going to require me to quarantine when we come back? And what does that mean? And then our future council meetings, do we want to still come together in this fashion? Do we want to try to handle those from an electronic type meeting in the future? So those are some of the policy things that I think there might be others that you think of, but those are some of the things that I've kind of identified. And then lastly, there's this resolution declaring a state of emergency for you to consider, so we can incorporate some of these policy items into that. It also helps if in the future there is grant funding available for reimbursement. We need a declaration in hand to make us eligible for that. Did you add?
Do you have a proclamation or a resolution before you?
Proclamation.
Everything's been,
Proclamation, which is what was given to me.
okay, you have a proclamation. So there's two statutes that you need to look at, and, obviously, yesterday and today, there's been statewide among municipal attorneys just, regurgitating this stuff left and right, and it's obviously developing as we speak. And then you get federal government, and then you get the governor issuing proclamations left and right and trying to analyze what the legal impact of those are. So, but I start with, obviously, the statutory provisions. We're in Chapter 323 that I never looked at in my entire 40 years of legal work. The declaration by the local government is 323.11, and it basically states that the governing body of any local unit of government may declare by ordinance or resolution an emergency. And then you get into the emergency situation here. So tonight, we're not going to be dealing with this proclamation by the mayor. The proclamation by the mayor happens if the common council can't meet in time to deal with it. And so we will be, whatever you do, assuming you decide to, by resolution, issue the same kind of pronouncement that we have an emergency, it will be amended to a resolution as opposed to a proclamation by the mayor. Then, once you get into determining that there is a emergency, then you get into 323.14 that deals with powers during an emergency. And there's been a lot of discussion. I think we can break this up into two things. One, how this body is going to function between now and whenever you say the emergency is over. And two, what you're going to do with staff and their interaction with the public. And I guess there's a subpart to that that deals with elections, because that is out of our local control. And unless the legislature comes back and says we will be postponing the election, which I hear as of today will not happen, we're going to have an election. And then we got to deal with poll workers who have pulled out, but that's the clerk's problem, not mine. So first, I think with regard to the issue relating to how you're going to do business, ordinarily, you've heard me say, and I will continue to say it, that I do not believe that absent an emergency, that you can have a meeting of this body where some of you are attending remotely. I do not believe that if there were an objection that were to be raised in a circuit court, that it would meet scrutiny with regard to the openness of government under Chapter 19. However, there was an hour-and-a-half meeting today with all of the municipal attorneys in the state through the auspices of the League of Wisconsin Municipalities, where everyone said, we think we have broad powers as municipalities to say, in an emergency, we can make accommodations with regard to that. So long as it is well announced ahead of time how you're going to do it, number one, and number two, that your constituents, the public, has an opportunity to participate. Since this is streamed to thousands and thousands of people that look at this every single meeting. I checked in tonight, it was 2. You're good that way. So my point is, if you're going to do something with meetings aside from canceling them, you put it into your resolution tonight how you're going to do it. Because otherwise, I don't think you can do it. And I think all of the lawyers from the state that deal with municipalities agree with that. Then you can get into the minutia of how to run the day-to-day operations of this city, or you can leave it to your administrator and the department heads to figure out how to do that. And I can't tell you what to do. You folks seem to like to be involved in that. But if you are going to make specific directives in that regard, you're going to have to do it. And I would recommend doing it through the auspices of this resolution. If you adopt the recommendation, I haven't seen the administrator's recommendations with regard to day-to-day operations. I haven't seen it. I'm not an HR person, so I won't care. I mean, I'm not going to get into it. But deal with it specifically in the context of the resolution in terms of how the day-to-day operation is going to go, or leave it to staff to figure that out, because there's a lot of stuff going on. You know, if somebody travels, what are the restrictions going to be when they come back? I mean, we did this in my office, and I mean, somebody comes back from a hot zone, 14 days. Somebody goes to a foreign country, 14 days. Work from home, you get paid, you know, the whole 9 yards. But I leave it to you. I just suggest that you got people here that know what they're doing, and maybe you don't want to get into the minutia of that. So that is essentially it. That's the background in terms of what your legal authority is. We don't have to get into the emergency proclamation by the mayor because we're all here. So there you go. Can I have some of that?
Okay.
Oh, God, I gotta drink it.
Go ahead, Matt.
I mean, I think I should start out by asking Sarah, what are we doing right now? Are we implementing any of these things that are in the policy? Are people not coming to work? I mean, where are we at right now?
We really haven't had any absences related to this yet. As far as closures, as far as the library is concerned, that was our biggest closure to date. We have had staff continue to report and do other functions, value-added functions during that time. So we've been able to continue to keep people employed in that regard. Our recreation programs that have been canceled, those part-time people that were doing those, they're not coming in, they're not reporting at this time for anything. So that's really, at this point, all we've done as far as closures and things that would affect staff. We haven't seen any absences yet for anybody that has been, or feels like they have symptoms or anything of that nature.
I mean, we're in a unique position as government because we keep getting paid, the taxes are in, the money's in. You know, private businesses are a lot, you know, the restaurants across the street that have now been ordered to be closed, they can't generate income. Our income's already been generated, you know, essentially through tax revenue. So I think we should do everything we can to protect our employees. I can tell you that all the jurisdictions that I work in around the country and at any given time that's 10 or 12, all the court systems around the country, federal, state, are saying no in-person appearances. So they're even ordering in civil cases, if you're taking a depo in this case and it's in this court, you will not do it in person. So I think there's things in the policy that we should address. I don't think we should allow vendors or residents to be coming to City Hall anymore. I think all travel should be completely restricted. Every large insurance company in the entire state, every large business is saying no travel at all. The exception I would say for the travel would be for a critical license. So we have an electrical lineman that is due for a license tomorrow, and if he doesn't get his 10 credits in, he can't work on our electrical lines. So I would make the exception for some type of critical license. Everything else should end.
Well, when you said residents can't come to City Hall, what about in-person absentee voting?
Well, I think
Which
voting is gonna
starts-
be a little different. I think we're
But
gonna have
that's,
to, yeah, we're
that's
gonna have
all
to address
residents
voting.
that come into City Hall, that's where they do the absentee voting.
That's what they're doing.
That's where you do it. So we have,
I'm just throwing it out there. I think the voting is the different thing.
see, to me, you have to keep, what's the difference if they vote, if they pay the utility bill?
Well, they can put their utility
They
bill in the
could,
slot.
yes, they could.
There are a number of communities that have, I would say, closed City Hall to general functions except for voting
Right.
in person, or the absentee or the registration process.
Wh-
I
which-
have seen
which-
that in some communities.
The absentee voting in person starts next Monday and goes for 2 weeks, which is at the peak of the time when we're not supposed to be here, but they have to be able to come in to vote. And if they don't come vote here, they're gonna vote someplace. So it doesn't matter if it's City Hall or another building, we have to have that facility, so.
Well, so
That part of it, they have to still be in process. Go ahead, Kevin.
Sarah, are you confident in handling the responsibility of making the decisions to keep our employees safe? I mean,
Yeah, yep,
We-
yep. I've been, I've been talking with the mayor
Been talking a
throughout,
lot.
and obviously in consultation with Tony, our HR manager. I mean, everybody's working together to try to stay on top of all of the information. So I think there's, the situation isn't quite here yet, but I know that it's coming as far as our workforce and things of that nature, so.
And it has been working relatively smooth, where we will talk and discuss how to handle these things, and the library closing, park and rec closing, canceling rec programs. I mean, sometimes you're kind of dictated at what it is, because they come down from mandates from the state or the federal government. School district closes, what are you gonna do? Go ahead.
So in regards to employee health and safety, public health and safety and the voting, would it make sense to segregate the absentee voting out of City Hall, since that's where we have employees dealing with, I'd say, mission critical type programs and activity, and maybe move absentee voting to the community center? Since for the most part, that'll be shut down for all other purposes and can be controlled a little bit more.
I would need to talk to Diane about that, because I know they need access to their election system, which is a secure computer in our office, and there's
Let's have Diane comment on
logistical
that.
matters with that as well.
Yes, what
What's your
Sarah,
your preference would be what would your preference be?
to keep it here. All of our files are here. The computers have to be secured, and we have to go through a security process through the Wisconsin Elections Commission. To move anything, I don't know if we could get all of that done in time to open up the in-office absentee voting. There's a lot of things that would need to occur. It would be very difficult. We don't have much time.
You're on a private network, and you have to encrypt things and stuff like that,
Right.
so that's not something that you're just gonna do.
Right. Well, so is there any way to help segregate the public access to
Well, I think,
non-voting related staff?
I think the way the city hall is set up now with security on the doors and things like that, people just can't come walking in and going into the clerk's office or to the, it's separated, everything is in the hallway. So that's the only public area where people can be. So I think that's probably the best way. Now, if you wanted to say utility bills must be paid outside, then put a sign up outside and say, pay all utility bills here. A lot of people don't come in with, they'll come in with a check and a card, they won't have it in an envelope.
Right.
So if they're coming in to pay a utility bill
Put it in the Dropbox.
or vote, I don't see the difference.
Well, they can mail their utility bill too.
And we have a Dropbox.
People have been
as
doing
well.
it for years.
I
you
know,
you
but they can
I know.
adjust. We don't need, 15 people rolling in
Just to pay a bill.
just to pay the utility
Yeah.
bill. They can mail it. If they know they can't come in, they'll just stick in the mail.
And that's true.
Yeah.
I
Put
like
some
the-
envelopes outside, yeah.
I like the idea of leaving the control within the city administrator and the staff here for the day-to-day operations. And, I mean, the other thing is, a lot of people aren't going to probably want to come in and pay their utility bill just based on what's going on. Some people are going to take some of this advice on their own, and we're not going to have to worry about that.
Yeah.
But I trust in what they're doing so far, and I also think that, as time goes on, they can just keep us apprised of some of the things and some of the changes they've made and some of the, as this rolls on, and Sarah's done a great job of that already, so.
I guess, go ahead, Tom.
Utility bills can't they just draw out of accounts, right?
Yeah.
There's auto
Auto
pay options, there's online payment options,
I'm-
Dropbox mail,
I'm
so
just
there's
sitting here 'cause
multiple.
I've been down there probably 3 times today. Is there not glass in where
Mhm.
people are? So that will be some protection.
It is
as far as
protection, yeah.
Somebody loogieing across the thing on here.
I guess that one of the biggest questions is, and I think that was one that Sarah and Tony had question on, is keeping the employees whole if they're not working. And I think that's a decision that this group has to make, is, you had mentioned it, it's taxpayer money, but it is taxpayer money.
Yeah,
And I mean, do
you're
you
right.
pay them for not showing up?
Yes, I mean, I think we shouldn't do anything less than what other facilities and other government agencies are doing. I do believe this plan that we just looked at tonight is pretty good. I do think we should change 2 and 6. I think we should not allow any vendors. All of these insurance companies, all the courts are not allowing vendors to come in. They're not allowing anybody to come in. So we don't need someone coming in to sell us a new radio system right now. They can wait a month. And I also think we should shut down City Hall except for election. That's my personal opinion, and I think that should be changed. I also think no travel should be allowed except for critical license needs. So if someone's got a trip, first of all, most of these conferences are already canceled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The airlines are giving you refunds, the hotels are giving you refunds, so this is a non-issue right now. No travel should be allowed unless it's for a critical license, like an electrical license, wastewater guy who's got a month before his license runs out. So those 2 things should be changed. I think we should declare the emergency. I also think we should shut down the community center. I mean, we have no rec programs
Community center
going.
shut down, right?
The community center is not closed, we've canceled all the rec programs at
Okay.
this point. So
Yeah,
we've
we
got,
should close it down.
I don't think there's much traffic in there, but
Close the
it
doors.
is open at this
I-
point.
No Meals for Wheels or anything there?
There's
That was the
no
one
meal,
thing.
that's a county program. They closed down the on-site meal, congregate meal site. But what is happening is they are preparing the delivery of the meals on wheels out of the facility to take it out. So,
So it's just staff doing that, though?
yeah, the counties comes in and they package it and take it
And
out.
right now, I think we should also, like you said, Mayor, is like for library staff, don't bring them here. Don't bring 25 people over here to do filing
No.
and expose more people to that. I mean, for this short period of time, it just doesn't make sense in my head. Now, if we're 6 months down the road, that might be a little different story, and there's still people getting sick, we're gonna have to reevaluate that, but.
What about, and this is just a thing, the police department is in the same building as City Hall. People come to the police window all the time. They have to have that ability. The police department is fully staffed. They're gonna be here all the time doing their thing. That's one area, and that's right at the back entrance. I guess, and I was gonna ask like Mark or even Jason about the people coming up for DPW type things. Do they have to come in, or can they do that remotely? Can you tell them not to come in and just to,
Do the majority of the things
Yeah.
without people
and
coming
planning,
in.
and then
Yeah.
the municipal court, and I'm not sure where that
That'll be
stands.
shut down.
Yeah, the court,
That's
the,
shut down for
30 days.
Yeah, all criminal proceedings are shut down.
Even the clerks up here?
Yeah.
the judge issued his own order earlier this week, that was before today.
Yeah.
To cancel all the initial appearances for this Friday's court proceedings, which was their immediate concern, because there was over 400 people scheduled to come
Yeah.
through.
That's his deal.
And that's his, yeah, that's his.
But what about the court, the clerks?
Not our deal, that's his deal.
But they're in our building.
Right.
Well,
The-
Right.
There's still, yeah.
and that's the question. When you say nobody comes in, they're coming in.
You would just open up these doors then, I guess, to the front door.
So you got both ends open and people coming in to vote, so you're really not closing anything off.
Well, you, as soon as you can, once the election's over, you close everything down that you can.
Yeah.
And work with the municipal clerk. I mean, I trust you guys to make these calls. I do think those two
I'm
sections.
just saying, there's gonna be people in and out of this building all day long
Yeah, but
because of those things.
And I think we should give you guys the authority to tell non-critical staff that can stay home to stay home right now.
And if you have traveled to work from home.
Yeah, I mean, if you can work from home, I mean, there's gonna be some people that can't. You have a water main break, right? Someone's gonna have to go out and fix it, or we won't
That's a
have water.
different group, they're not here, they're out
Right,
in the
I
shops.
understand, but we understand, I think that, and we trust you guys to make those calls.
I mean, the people that work in the utilities are gonna have to continue doing their work. Line crews, DPW, they're all gonna have to continue with what they have to do. And with the springtime coming, Parks and Recs and DPW is gonna have to go out and start working on the fields and can't leave that stuff sit.
In regards to our seniors, I know we help subsidize Silver Streak a little bit. If there's an increased demand for that type of service, is there any authorities that you need from a budgeting standpoint? Do we need to discuss anything with them to make sure that food, medicine, transportation for healthcare to those citizens that rely on that service continue?
Yeah, really the only support we provide right now is $6,000 to the Silver Streak for the transportation there.
Right.
So, frankly, I haven't talked to Silver Streak to understand if they have a greater need or not. At this point, they haven't reached out to us. So, I mean, we do, I think, Stan, correct me if I'm wrong, I think with the emergency declaration, we have authority to do additional expenditures if needed as well.
I think we should declare martial law.
It's not martial law.
It's not martial.
law.
Right, well, but it should be, because the fact that, the arrogant people of the United States of America aren't gonna be. They think they're inevitable. How are we gonna be able to control, governor shut down the bars and whatever heck it is, and left the doors open for drive-up windows or whatever you wanna do? They're gonna be in these places.
That's not really up to us, that's state and federal stuff.
Yeah, well, I hope that's why.
We don't
martial law.
we don't declare martial law.
I say we just give Sarah and staff, we should have the confidence in their abilities to be able to handle this until if they come back to us and then say, well, no, we need some guidance in this, whatever, I say we
Well,
just.
that's one of the reasons we're here tonight, because some of the things we discussed, I said this should go to the council. Some of these things. One of the other items that needs to be decided is, we don't meet for 3 weeks, which is convenient. And in 3 weeks' time, depending on how things are going, we'll have to decide at that point if we will have a council meeting. Because we can always cancel a council meeting if we have to. It is the night of the election if the election still goes on, but we'll have to decide sometime the week before that, and I think we'll be given enough direction from the state and federal government of what they think we should do, and then we can decide at that point what we need to do.
What do we need to put in the resolution then? What do we need to amend tonight then?
We don't really have a resolution, we have a proclamation.
Well,
We can just basically.
Yeah, but we were just told not to deal with the proclamation.
Right.
No, we don't have a resolution.
So, listening to all of you collectively, what I'm hearing is we revise the proclamation to be a resolution, that the resolution is in essentially the same form as we have now, that you authorize the mayor in consultation with staff to implement measures associated with both meetings, future meetings, and with regard to operations of the city hall. Now, recognize that if something you see goes awry, you can demand that you get a meeting and you can rescind the resolution. So that's the check that you have on this. Obviously, I know this staff will be very, very transparent and communicative with you in terms of what's going on with regard to this. So an example, the meeting on first Tuesday in April. If the mayor thinks that the situation is still in present, that it should be canceled, or would recommend that there be some type of ability for folks that don't feel like they want to be here on the Common Council, that want to appear by some type of electronic means, then that would be communicated to all of you and to the public. And then you would have the option to opt for that. But it gives a lot of flexibility under a state of emergency order. So, you know, we can't anticipate what's going to happen between now and then. I think that the resolution that your police chief put together, or the proclamation, is fine. We can just tweak it a little bit. It will not be changing any substantive aspects of this other than to put into place what you have talked about here tonight. If you trust staff and myself to put it together in that form, authorize the mayor to sign it, then that's what will happen. Otherwise, it can be distributed to each of you, but it will not be dramatically or substantively different than what you've seen here tonight.
So what about this, what about adding either wherefore clause or something else that says that city council authorizes the mayor with consultation with city staff to cancel or change the meeting venue?
Yep. Venue?
Not venue,
Well,
date.
or, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a word.
Yes. I can take care of that. It will essentially say,
Characteristics of the
to
meeting.
allow for alternative means of participation in the council meeting,
Right.
including but not limited to telephonic, or if we can get some type of thing where you can put your face up there when you're sitting in front of your fireplace.
Well, Ivan, you got something to think about now for the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we add that, do you want us to add any of these other things we talked about? Like,
Yes, there will be a provision in there that says that you have, Sarah will change her recommended protocol
based on our discussion.
based on your discussion, and it will be attached to this thing as a general guideline. It's not gonna be, you know, the law, it's a resolution. So that is how I would recommend that you proceed based upon the discussion I heard here tonight. Can I have that stuff here again?
Question. I'm in agreement that, you know, our staff and mayor proceed with the resolution. Is there anything that we can put into that resolution that helps to provide some guidelines in regards to communication to the public in regards to what measures are being taken? So, you know, every 48 hours, or when measures are taken that are out of normal operating procedures, that some notification be provided, so.
Yeah, we've been trying to do that proactively now. I asked for help the last couple of days. I had Bob helping me with that more, so you're seeing more activity as far as information out to the public. So I don't think you need to put that in here. We're trying to be proactive on that.
Any changes are going up on the city website, so
Yeah.
whatever new dictates or mandates come down, plus whatever we change here, would be posted on the city website. Plus, the newspapers would know about it.
You guys are, so is everyone okay then with the changes to the vendors and meetings once the
Yeah, that should be
election's
put
done?
in there too.
Changes
Yes.
to the travel, community center closing?
And I don't know if you can completely restrict citizens coming to City Hall, but you can limit them
Yeah, and
Limit them as much as
especially after the
possible.
election.
as much as possible.
Yeah.
I personally think they're probably going to use their own mind and not come in.
A lot
I don't
of,
think they
a
will.
lot of seniors do the same thing the same way.
Right.
And they come, they've been paying a utility bill here to come and talk and just visit. That's just the way they do it.
Okay.
So it's gonna be difficult to have some of them not come.
You.
tax season, otherwise we'd have everybody here.
Well, this thing might go till tax season.
Oh, quick last question for Sarah. So we were saying limiting or banning travel out of state for city
Any
employees.
travel,
What did you say?
any travel,
Any travel?
not out of state, just
What
any
about,
travel.
what about in a situation where a family member would need to attend a funeral?
No, in business travel.
Yeah, I
Just
took
business.
that as business travel. I
Business
think the
travel.
the secondary question to that is if there's personal travel outside, I think that's the quarantine issue.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I
And,
thought.
They might have a vacation plan and, yeah, you can't stop them from doing that.
Right, right.
You can't stop the personal travel, but right, exactly. So no city travel. So if we've got 3 people are going to go to a conference next week, it's no, that's canceled, that's over.
Yeah.
But, yeah, right, mom gets sick, you're going to go see her or, whatever, of course. You can't stop that. But they go to Washington State, they should be
Yeah.
telling us and letting
Yes.
us know.
Anywhere that way, yeah.
Right.
Washington, New York, or
Oh, right. I
California,
mean,
those are
a
the
lot
three
of places,
hotbeds right
right.
now.
Go to West Virginia, they don't have any.
Yeah,
I
they
saw
do
that.
now.
No, today, as
Oh,
of
they
today,
did?
we do.
now.
They finally got one.
Here, I thought Davy Crockett shot them all.
I was just about to move to West Virginia, too.
I know.
Got it.
Davy
We
Crockett.
need a
You're all down in the
motion
coal
to-
mines.
We'll need a motion to approve the resolution on pandemic preparedness plan and COVID-19 response matters as amended.
As
and
amended and discussed.
Discussed by the
So
council.
moved.
Second.
Any other questions? I think what we'll do, though, is once we have it prepared, we'll send a copy to everybody.
Absolutely.
And if there's any comments, send them back before it is signed.
Question?
On your comments.
Right. On a resolution as such, based on the nature of it, do we post that in our public paper, just that this has been done? No.
The newspaper, we'll put it, yeah, we
It's-
can put
yeah,
it on
it's
the
not a typical
website.
resolution.
We'll mention the
Okay.
It'll be on the
information on the
website.
website, yeah.
Both people, yeah.
Alex is listening.
Nice, there you go, all right.
It's got to be a record.
Hey,
So we have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Alderman Straight.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Shaw.
Aye.
Okay, staff reports?
Nothing, I just wanted to say thank you for the candid conversation, and we're going to stay in communication with you throughout this, so thank you for the discussion tonight. Appreciate it.
Diane, did you have anything about the election?
The only thing I was going to say was that Tuesday, April 7th is still Election Day. The polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. In-office absentee voting starts at City Hall on Monday, March 23rd, ends on Friday, April 3rd, no Saturdays or Sundays. We are open from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. We are also, we put a notice out on the website of that, but we also enhance that, their usual notice to indicate that anyone can request a ballot, an absentee ballot, be mailed to them. So, of course, if individuals are not so inclined to want to come to City Hall, they still have a way to get their ballot and be able to vote it and get it back in time for Election Day. And the deadline to request a ballot by mail is Thursday, April 2nd at 5 p.m.
Okay. Okay, reports and comments from the mayor. I have a proclamation on the 2020 census. It reads, whereas the city will take place the census will take place in April 2020, and political representation to the United States House of Representatives and state legislatures are determined by that census. And whereas the city of Oconomowoc recognizes the importance of each resident in the 2020 census count, and whereas the city of Oconomowoc has agreed to be one of 6,425 government entities in partnership with the U.S. Bureau of Census, and whereas the city of Oconomowoc understands that its primary role in this partnership is to formulate a complete count committee to foster census awareness, and whereas the city of Oconomowoc further understands the complete count committee should inform and educate the city's residents in the necessity and importance of response and 100% participation in the 2020 census. And whereas the city of Oconomowoc further understands that members of the Oconomowoc community, including but not limited to the city government, school district and schools, media, churches, and business, play a role in obtaining a complete count in an expeditious manner. Now therefore, I, David Nold, Mayor of the City of Oconomowoc, do hereby urge all members of the Oconomowoc community to fully participate in a prompt and expeditious manner, and I do further urge support and cooperation with the complete count committee. Anything else? Other things I have is, again, we have the election coming up on April 7th, as far as we know now. If any changes come to that, I'm sure you will all hear about it. I urge everybody to come out and vote, either in person absentee, or by absentee. It's a very important election, and that's about all I have tonight. Reports and comments from Alderman? Go ahead.
I'd just like to thank staff for all of the work above and beyond, and to make a public comment that we do live in an incredible community. The amount of outreach and support that has been provided to neighbors and friends is encouraging, and that will, I'm sure, continue. And the vote is coming up, and that is an important part of our citizenry, being a citizen. And the absentee ballots, I'm sure, will be caught up and taken care of by Diana, our clerk's office. And I know, and I just wish everybody happy health in the weeks ahead.
Any other comments?
I got one.
Oh, go ahead.
You can, if you go to Iceland or Antarctica, those two are also not involved. But according to an article in the paper, maybe last week or the week before, that I guess I'm the designated driver for all the aldermen around here. I
Going to
guess there
baseball
was
games, yeah.
For baseball games and wherever I have to go. So I got people calling me, lining me up already. So
You can thank Alderman Shaw for that.
yeah, thanks, Charlie.
Any other comments? Seeing none, we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Stay healthy. Social
Tomer, you're welcome.